Hey guys, in this video you'll learn how to sidechain a multiband compressor. A multiband compressor is an awesome tool used to be able to carve up some space in your spectrum to be able to leave room for your other instruments. The Ableton file I'll be working with is available for a free download in the descriptions below. Simply click on the link, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel to stay up to date with all my weekly music production tutorials. Multiband sidechaining is like basic sidechaining, but you could actually choose the range, the spectrum, the EQ spectrum range you want your sidechain to happen in a specific instrument. Let's say you have a bass line with some mid sounds and some high sounds in it. You want to preserve those sounds, but at the same time make sure that you've opened up some space for vocals or your lead sounds to breathe in your mix. So there's many ways of doing this. There are many multiband compressors available for you to sidechain with, but the one I'll be talking about in this video is Ableton's native Multiband Dynamics. So let's get started. I have a groove here. I've picked these stems from a sample pack that came with my APC40. It's basically a controller made for Ableton from Akai. So let's quickly check it out, and I'll run through these channels individually so you hear what the individual sounds sound like. Here we go. Let's listen to them individually. Let's start off with the kick, add the bass, the pad, and the vocal effects. So here we go. It's a very basic groove. Now, for the sake of this video, we're going to focus on the pads and the vocals. They're pretty much in the same range. We want to open up some space for the pads. We're going to open up some space for the vocal glitch in the pads. So the pads will be scooped up in specific frequencies for the vocal effect to breathe in, the vocal glitch. So what I'll do is I'll solo these two instruments together for now. So we're hearing everything aside from the kick, the drum groove, and the bass. First off, let's see what spectrum, what EQ range each sound occupies. So the pad right here occupies about 150 to like about 3,700 hertz. As for the vocal glitch, about 125, 130, up to about 3,000. So what we do is we identify this range, the range that we want the vocal glitch to adjust in the pad, and we add the compression accordingly. So let's go and put in a Multiband Dynamics on the pad, because we want the pad to dip according to the vocals, based on the vocals. We'll start off by clicking on this triangle, clicking the sidechain button on, and choosing the input, which will be the vocals, because the vocals are going to affect how the pads will be sidechained. So we'll click on the vocal effects. Now, I want to keep this explanation a bit simple. There's three horizontal bands, the highs, the mid, and the low. And there's two crossover points right here. In our case, we're going to pick about 150 to about 3,500. This is pretty much the range that we saw in the vocals. So this crossover point, whatever is below this crossover point, is controlled by the low row. Whatever is above 3.5 kilohertz or 3,500 hertz is controlled by this top horizontal row. But because the vocals fall between the 150 and 3,500, we're going to be using the middle one. So there's two tabs to look at. The first one, that's called T, is for attack and release. We'll get back to this if necessary afterwards. It's how fast the compressor turns on and how fast it releases, it closes. Second important tab to look at is the A, above, which basically means whenever the signal goes above the point that we set, the volume will dip according to our parameters. So it's a downward compression. So as we said, we're just going to focus on the middle row right here. Let me press play and see the signal that we're seeing. The signal that we're seeing now is the sound, the pad sound affected by the vocals. We see there's blue lines, and there is at the tip of it orange small lines. Because the ratio is set to 1:1, even though we're passing the -20 decibel range, nothing's happening to the signal. simply because it's a 1-to-1 ratio. Once we increase the ratio, that's when whatever signal is above the -20 will be affected by the ratio that we input. So I'm going to reduce this a bit. You see this section gets squashed. We'll see what's going to happen to the signal. You see now between the orange line and the blue line, there's a small gap. That's the downward compression that's happening. So what that means is in the pad sound, in this white sound, from the range, between this range from 150 to 3500, the signal is being reduced by the numbers we see right here. So it fluctuates live. So from -2.2 to -5 decibel is what is currently being decreased in the pad in this specific region. So we don't want to dip the whole sound because the vocals don't cover a lower range or a super high range. We just want that specific range in the pad to duck, and that's what's happening right now. I'm just going to exaggerate the example so you hear what is actually happening to the pad sound. So every time the vocals come in and pass that frequency range, those decibels, that frequency range between 150 and 3500 dips in so much that we hear the pads pulse very obviously. It doesn't sound good, obviously, so we just have to make sure to apply this technique in a subtle way. So this is how I would set it up for this scenario. You just want it to dip a bit, about like 4 or 5 decibels at the most. Yeah, someone said jumps to 9, but that's not a big deal. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And if we do this properly, especially when you have vocals running, I put Multiband Dynamics on pretty much all my group channels, the bass, the drums, the pads, just to scoop up some space for the vocals to sit comfortably in the mix. And then you can actually reduce your vocal volume and it just fits in. So it's pretty much straightforward. This is not a simple trick to use. It requires a lot of experience. Just keep on doing it as I showed you and then start adding your flavor to it. You could go and play around with the attack and the release as well according to how fast you want the compressor to kick in and how fast you want the compressor to close. So that's about it. And as always, if you have any questions, don't forget to write them in the comments below and click on the link below to be able to have access to this file, and you'll have access to the loops as well and to my settings right now that I've done. And that's about it. Don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to my channel. See you guys next time.